Hello, welcome to More Yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're having an awesome day. We are going to work into glute strength a little bit today. Why? Because I love doing that, and even pre-pandemic, I love doing it. But also recently, not recently. Let's be straight here. But the past year, I think we've all been sitting a little bit more than we normally would be, unless your job is up and about and running around all day or standing all day. And what that means is that our muscles start to get amnesia, right? They don't know how to fire as quickly, particularly the glutes, because when you're seated, they're in a lengthened position all day. So the goal is to squeeze them up, fire them up, so that they can help support our bodies properly when we choose to not be seated. So for today, if you have something like a block, that could be really useful because we're going to be elevating ourselves from the floor. And if you don't have anything like that, that is totally fine. Although I imagine that you probably have a couple books or something like that in your house that you could use. But again, if you don't have it, it's fine. It just makes the exercise a little bit more difficult. Let's start laying down. You could choose to have your legs extended if you wish, or you might choose to have the knees bent with sort of the feet wider than the legs so that the knees can hang in toward each other, or maybe you choose to have the soles of the feet together and the knees wide, or you could rest on your side even for the first few moments, wherever you need to be. And depending on how your day has been, if you have any wiggles you need to get out, then get out the wiggles or the yawns or you know, the things we do as we settle on the floor. And then when you feel settled for a few breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then continue breathing however you need to, whether it's in and out through your nose or your mouth. Start to observe your breath. Noticing the inhale and the exhale. Notice how your breath is flowing, whether it feels really open and spacious, or maybe with the change in the weather and the blossoms coming out, you notice a little bit of sticky or choppiness along the way, which is totally fine, but you might try to lengthen through those parts of the breath just to smooth it out a little bit more. And we're not aiming for a really deep breath, just a smooth breath. Last couple breaths here. And then start to bring a little bit of movement back to your body. Ooh, whatever way feels best. So we'll start to move. Apparently I'm doing a huge yawning sort of stretch. Just listening to your body move how you need to. Until eventually you feel ready to draw your knees into your chest and take a little rock from side to side. And draw your knees quite close toward you. Getting a little bit more into mid back and the top of the pelvis. And then start to take your legs a little bit further away and just see, well, if maybe there's some release that feels better lower down the spine. And then pause back and center, keeping your knees bent. Release your feet to the floor. So you're going to plant your feet about hip width apart, parallel-ish, and close enough into your bum that you can graze your heels with your fingertips. So we'll set up for a bridge pose. Take a little loop of your shoulder blades onto the back so your heart can open up a bit more here. And you want your feet parallel-ish, right? Not too wide, not too narrow. So notice, even you can lift your head up and look. See where your thighs are now. And you want to try and maintain that neutral alignment with the thighs as we move up and into bridge, or up and out of bridge. So pressing the heels into the floor, especially inhale, lift the pelvis and the spine up and away, and then exhale, slowly lower back down. A few more of these. So again, notice if your knees are really winging out to the side, you're not using the glutes to their fullest advantage. And if the thighs are touching, then you're overcompensating. Or rather, if your knees are touching, right? Depending on the shape of your legs, your thighs might be touching, that's fine. But the knees should never touch. The next time that you lift up into bridge, pause there. Okay, think of pressing your feet away from you here. Feel the tops of the thighs now starting to engage. Okay, and now the opposite. Think of dragging your heels back toward you, really feeling the glutes and the hamstrings in particular fire up. And then can you find somewhere in between those two activations? And really what it's going to be is squeezing the bum a little bit more. Lift the heart up to the sky, maybe walk onto the outside edge of your shoulders. Couple more breaths here. Lift the hips a little bit higher if you can. Keep the thighs in neutral. Last few breaths. Try to keep your head still when you're lifted. Okay, slowly lower down to the earth. Whew, you might pause in stillness here, or maybe take a little wiggle or shake, whatever your body needs to do in between. Sometimes I like just pausing in stillness because it means I don't have to reset when we go into the second set. So if you've moved, plant your feet, parallel, close enough into your bum, little loop of the shoulder blades onto the back, and then inhale, lift up into bridge. This time we're just going to pause at the top right away, unless you would prefer, right, to come in and out. Okay, now start to send the weight over to your right foot. Come onto the toes on the left foot. Option 1 is here. Option 2 is start to bend that left knee. Make sure that you don't lose the lift in the hips. So keep pressing up. Maybe you cross that left ankle over top of the right thigh. Press the ankle into the thigh to lift that left hip up a little bit higher. Last option, reach up to the sky. And then bring your left foot back to the floor. Shake it out if you need to, if you've cramped through the muscles, and then come back to that high bridge. Option 1, come onto the toes on the right foot. Option 2, start to de-weight that right leg. Maybe you cross the ankle over top of the left thigh, pressing into the, cramping, pressing the ankle into the thigh a little bit more to lift that right hip. And then reach the foot up to the sky. Okay, bring that right leg down, slowly lower down to the floor. Okay, take your feet mat width apart, little windshield wiper of the knees, releasing through the low back, through the legs. I don't know about you, but my hamstrings were really starting to cramp there, which I guess is a sign that I was using them a lot. Draw your knees toward you. Some of you might just roll to one side here and then press yourself up to hands and knees. Or maybe you take the opportunity to play a little bit, rocking and rolling up and down your spine, eventually making your way to hands and knees. All right, so setting up with knees underneath hips. Toes can be tucked or untucked, and then hands out or shoulder width apart or wider. Little draw of belly button to spine. And as we inhale, lift the tailbone Hollow through the lower back. Wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. Think almost of pulling yourself forward with your hands. Exhale, press the hands away from you to round through the spine. Inhale to lift the tailbone, dipping into cow. Exhale, tuck the tailbone, round to cat. So a few more of these undulations on your own time, on your own breath. Moving however you need to. All right, so if there's some other natural movement that would feel really good here, feel free to add on. Go where you need to go. And then slowly come back to center. Okay, little draw of belly button to spine. Now, if your wrists are feeling a little bit tender, you can always come up onto fists or fingertips. That's going to take even more strength here. And that will help keep the wrists in neutral. If you would like to use a bit of padding under one knee, like a chip foam block or doubling up your mat, then go ahead and bring it underneath your left knee. Okay, and then pick up that right leg. Very subtle movement. You're just going to lift the right knee out as far to the right as you can before you feel like the body has to move. All right, so if you're lifting the hip or compensating, then you've gone too far. All right, so just little mini fire hydrants or clamshells. Just starting to fire up those glutes, and then go ahead and add the extra movement. So now we're just loosening up the hip socket. You're still working the glutes, especially on that supporting leg. Right? Move however you need to move. Okay, and then come back to center. Reset if you want to reset for a second. And then belly button to spine. Keep that right knee bent, right ankle flexed. Start to pick that right knee up. Okay, and then take a little lift of the sole of the foot a bit higher. Try not to dip into the low back too much. So these are quite subtle movements. Keep pressing the lower ribs up to the sky as we pulse that right heel or sole of the foot up to the sky. Last 3, 2, 1, and then lower it down. Shake it out, little wiggle or release, and then whoops, we'll switch sides. Bring the padding underneath the other knee if you're using cushioning. And then again, really solid and steady through your whole body. Start to take the left knee out to the side without lifting the hip. All right, so the range of movement is probably quite small here. Maybe 35 or 45 degrees, depending on how your femur connects into your hip socket. Last 2. Okay, and then start to bring a little bit more movement. Figure 8s, doesn't matter if the body gets into it now. Right, just lubricating that hip. And then come back to center, reset, and then flex the knee, the ankle on that left leg, press the lower ribs up to the sky. Start to lift that left leg back behind you, heel pressing up to the sky, and then little pulses up and down without taking it into cow. Okay, so keep pressing the lower ribs up to the sky as we lift that left leg. You feel this targeting into the glutes on both sides, right? Not just the working leg, also the supporting leg. Keep spreading the fingers wide, right? We've spent a lot of time here on the hands and knees. Last 3, 2, 1. Bring it down, shake it all out. A little wiggle or release. You can shake out the hands, the wrists, right? Getting some relief there. And then for a couple breaths, let's sit back into child's pose. So either knees wide or knees together, just getting that little bit of release through the hips, through the low back maybe. You can always stack your fists underneath your forehead. If you'd like a little bit more lift here. And then press yourself back up. And then step to the top edge of your mat, standing forward fold. And this will also feel, hopefully, like a bit of a release for your glutes. Right now, they're in a fully extended position here when you're in forward fold, so long as you're in a hip hinge rather than just rounding through the spine. Right? So think of chopping yourself at your hip crease to fold. Knees can be bent. And in fact, I would prefer if they're bent, bent, bent. You could rest your elbows on your knees or thighs, or maybe you have blocks that you want to bring underneath your hands. If you'd like more release through the spine, you could clasp opposite elbows with hands, maybe sway a little bit from side to side, just going wherever you need to go. And then release your hands if they're bound with fingertips to your shins or blocks or the earth. Inhale, little partway lift, belly button to spine. Pause here. I really want you to think of sending your tailbone back to the back wall as much as you beam your heart or the crown of your head forward. So don't lift with your chin. Don't leave with the chin, right? Imagine that you've got an orange between your chin and your chest that you're trying to keep there. And then exhale, let it all go. 2 more of those. Really use the support of your hands either on the floor or your shins. And release. Okay, bend your knees. Slowly start to roll up to standing. 1 vertebra at a time. As slow as you need to go. Till eventually you come all the way up. Couple loops of your shoulders. Up, back, and down. A little wiggle, noodle, or release. My hair is falling out. Oh dear. And then come to a nice standing position. A nice one? What does that mean? Let's try mountain pose. So feet hip width apart. Hug the legs toward each other slightly. Tailbone to the earth. Belly button to spine. Shoulder blades on your back, right? So it's active. There's lift here. I just want you to shift your weight from side to side on the feet. Keep the toes really active. Maybe you start to draw circles here, right? Maybe playing with, possibly even falling out of it. That's okay. Or getting right to the edge, like that precipice. And then come back to center, a little draw of belly button to spine. On your inhale, sit your hips down and back. Chair pose. So try not to fold forward so much with the chest. Right? Think of lifting the heart as the hips go down and back. Tailbone to the earth slightly till you feel your belly button engage toward your spine. And then the knees will want to cave in, right? Because these guys, these glutes, aren't firing, right? They don't have amnesia, so send them out to the baby toe edges of the feet. I like to imagine that there's a sheet of paper underneath the soles of my feet, and I'm trying to tear the sheet by turning the feet out slightly. Okay, bring your arms to cactus. And can you sit down a little bit deeper? Hips low, heart high. So there's a touch of extra extension here in the spine. Last 2 breaths here. Last one. Okay, come all the way up. Shake out a little bit. Okay, grab one of your blocks or both of them if you have 2, and we're going to stand on them. I like setting them up this way so that my toes aren't hanging off the edge of a block. If you only have 1, it's fine. If you don't have any blocks at all, that is also totally fine. You're going to step up onto the block or blocks or books or whatever you might be using with your right foot. If you don't have blocks, just send your weight over to your right leg. And then come up. Couple taps up and down with that left leg just to find your balance. Little buoyancy on that supporting knee. Right? I just noticed my right knee was locked out and my glutes aren't firing as much. So little bend in that supporting knee. Make sure